Alright guys, welcome back to the Clack Shack, and I'm going to do a little quick video tonight. I've got some new stuff in. I've been playing with my router table and doing some finger joints and stuff like that with a new jig that I got for it. And so I don't got a whole lot of time here, but I've had a few people ask me about my camera. And on that note, I've got a new camera that I had ordered. I got a shipment in today from Amazon, and it's something I'm going to play around with. I've got a build or a project coming up, and I want to try some different stuff. I'm happy with the camera that I have now, but I've got a build that I'm going to do that's going to require a bit smaller camera and maybe even having another machine in the shop. And so I thought I would try something a little different. And so I found this guy on Amazon, which is a really, really small camera. And I mean, that guy is tiny. Uh, and I've looked at the specs on it, and it's almost identical to the one that Lightburn sells. So I'm thinking that this is going to be a good application or a good fit for what I'm wanting to use it for. And I'll wait until it gets here to show you. But I got an enclosure coming, and I'm going to use this little small tiny camera on that enclosure and configure it up to see what this camera does. I'm not really wanting to change the one out for my X tool that I've got right now. I'm pretty pleased with it, and just to be honest with you, I don't see changing it. It works for me. A lot of people have asked me about it, and I don't want to bore you with going through the whole setup process, but I will show you where to find those settings if you do get a camera, and there's lots of videos out there that go into depth about the setup process, and so I'm not going to reinvent the wheel with that. But let me get my software up here. When you get a camera and you get it installed on your machine, there's some tools that you're going to have to use here to set it up. You're going to need to run the Calibrate camera lens, which is the polka dot test, and I'll show you what that looks like. But I'm not gonna run it right now. And what it does is you just have to select the camera, fisheye lens or standard lens, and you run through here. It makes you print this little polka dot sheet here out and put it in your workspace, and just capture, move on, capture, move on, capture, move on. One thing that I will add is when you print this, print it on a full sheet of copy paper. The first time I printed it, for whatever reason, my printer was set incorrectly and it printed like a half a sheet. And I did find that it does a better job if you use a full sheet for that to do this step. So that's a recommendation I would have to make. Then once you get that done, it's going to tell you, but you'll have to go on to this one, and this one's going to require you to have some material, and you burn a pattern to it, and then you have to go around and click on the little. You click on these to line everything up, and it sets the settings in your camera to try to help it be accurate. But we won't go into all that. Like I said, there's plenty of excellent videos out there that you can find for that. But I've had some people ask me about my specific setup, and I'm running the Logitech HD Pro. It's called a 1080 Pro Stream from Logitech, and I've got a video where I put a link to it in the description. It's not a cheap camera. It's a little pricey. This little small one that I've got today that I got in, it's made for Raspberry. It's a little cheaper, but I looked at the specs of the one that Lightburn sells, and I looked at this one, and they're really, really remarkably close. So I'm thinking it'll do a good enough job, and I think the setup will be very similar to the Lightburn camera. So I'm going to try that out in my next little project here. But for tonight, I just wanted to run a little quick show. I'm going to show you you can see my laser bed over here, and that's a live camera feed, so you can see what's going on over there. And I'm going to just basically, I'm going to do some target practice here. I have set my laser up and got everything configured with the camera, and I'm going to show you kind of how I go about before I depend on this camera, because like I said, it does a really good job. But if you're wanting to get like really exact, like say if you're engraving an object that's already cut, there's going to be a little variation from time to time. So One thing that I like to do to try to test it to see if it's on for the night or not is I'll use this little looks like Google Maps icon over here, and I'll go over whatever it is that I'm wanting to target, and I'll just kind of put the mouse right in the center of it, and watch the screen up there where the laser is too, by the way. And when you hit that, that basically tells it to travel to that location. And so the laser is going to travel to that location, and you can look at your framing laser, and it'll show you exactly where the laser is. Now it's a little high on that one right there. So before we go to being dependent on this thing, I'm going to assume that it's probably going to be a little bit high. So I'm going to place my little circle here a little low on it. Because like I said, I've just restarted everything, and it's not going to be 100% accurate right now. And I've got that just a little quick feel, and I'm just going to burn that, and then I'll update the overlay so you can see that spot and see exactly where it went in relation to the preview, I guess you could say, on the screen here. But yeah, as I assumed, it's a little higher than what the preview's showing. But that's okay. Lightburn does have a method of adjusting that. So if you're wanting to use this for like a pocket knife or something like that to try to get it exact, you need to do some testing to make sure that it's dialed in first before you go to trusting it. But this camera it does pretty good. Okay, so I just hit my update overlay button. And so this is where it told me it was going to put it. But as you can see back here, let me see if I can turn the fade off a little bit. That doesn't really help. This is actually where it went. So the way you would go about fixing that is it's got an X shift right here, and it's got a Y shift. So we need to come up on the Y axis until I can't see where it burned. So if it holds true, now the laser should be aligned properly. So I'm going to go into this other little dot over here, and I move them around because I have learned that this thing is very dependent when you set it. If you move across your workspace, it can cause it to be a little off. I guess because of the way it learns where it's going to burn to. So I'm going to move it to that one there, and we're going to start that one and burn it. I'm going to do the same thing. Once it burns, I'm going to update my overlay and let you see where the burn mark is as compared to the black circle. If everything lines up perfect, when I update my overlay, you won't be able to see the burn. It will not be hanging out from the edges of the little black circle there that shows you the preview of the field. So I'm going to go ahead and update my overlay. And as you can see, that time, you can't. I've updated it, and you can't see where the burn is. So what I'm going to do to show you here, I'm going to turn that cut line off so that black will disappear. And there's the actual burn on my updated overlay. So that one was pretty exact, pretty precise. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here to one of these other ones. We're going to repeat the process. And like I said, just kind of got to understand that it's not going to be precise. And like I said, for engraving on objects that are already cut, it's accurate, but you better test it, because sometimes I'm telling you, it gets a wild hair every now and then. And I don't know if that's the software, the camera, or what, but occasionally it'll get a wild hair and it'll be off. But if you test it beforehand and you adjust your X and Y axis, you can get things pretty precise with it. That's my stance on that. Like I said, now if you're doing a cutout, let's say you've got a piece of wood that's 4 inches by 4 inches, and you're trying to lay out your design, and you're going to be cutting out a 2-inch piece of that wood. If you're cutting and engraving at the same time so that you can make sure everything is centered, it's not really that big of a concern. But if you're engraving an object that is of a specific size, and you don't want to, go off the edges or outside of a certain area, then it is a concern. All right, so I updated my overlay, and we'll do it again a couple times just so everybody can see. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off that black circle to show you where the actual burn is behind it. And there you go. So there it is. I mean, it is spot on now. But like I said, I did check everything and kind of calibrate everything when I first powered it up just to make sure. And I would recommend that if you're going to trust this with a pocket knife or some type of object that you don't want to mess up, I would definitely recommend you run the paces on it and test it before you start throwing any expensive merchandise on there. So I've got another one. I'm going to do this one here, and we're going to go ahead and see if we can target it. Now keep in mind, my machine is set to return to the home location after a burn, so I'm having to trek all the way from home location back over. So this is it's pretty consistent. It's pretty accurate. Well, that piece is out of focus. It is smoking. All right, I'm going to update my camera overlay again. Guys, I don't know if y'all can hear that, but that guy, one of these days, we're going to be picking him up with a shovel. He comes by here on that motorcycle like that all the time. And my neighbors have cows that he can't keep in a fence. And black cows in the road at night, you on a motorcycle. Terrible, terrible mix. Seen it happen too many times. So as you can see, I'm hitting the update overlay, and you can't see any of the burn hanging out from around this. And I'm zoomed way in there. I mean, it's almost like a microscope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off that cut so that you can see what's underneath it. And there's the burn. So that's pretty close. If you pay really close attention, you can barely see the edge of the burn, like right there and right across here. It's a little hard for me to see with these glasses on, but that's pretty precise. And these little pieces that I'm cutting are the ones I cut out last night, so they're not all that big. So one more just for good measure, and then we're going to wrap this up. Like I said, some folks just asked me about the camera and how accurate it was and if it was a help, and I don't really know how to explain it, so I just felt it was better just to show you what it does. That's not quite centered. All right. So I'll go ahead and run that one. Let me back this camera out so you can see the scale of things we're working with here. But oh, something I said last night that I have found out that I was not entirely accurate on. I did attempt to change my homing speed on this machine, but I was going to replicate it and show everybody how to do it, and come to find out you cannot write to the controller on this machine. It makes you think it is. It tells you it wrote to the controller, but when you go back and try to read it again, it doesn't. So, but that was a mistake on my part. I did go in and try to change it, and I thought I had. It had me fooled. But when I went back tonight and was going through the process and just, getting ready to explain it, I realized that even though it said settings saved, the settings didn't save. So I'm going to try to cut that little piece out of the video because I was wrong on that. There's our circle. I'm going to update the overlay. And there you go. So we can zoom down, and you can barely make out the edge of the burn right there. So I'm going to go over here and turn the cut off. And there it is. So that's how it works, guys. One more thing that you can do, that if you had never seen it done, you can trace with this thing. Now, it's not going to do a real good job with my honeycomb up there. Let me see if I got something I can stick up there and show you. All right. So that's just a little burn that I did a while back, and let me see if I can get getting it to trace it. All right, so what you want to do is try to get away from all this noise that you can. Damn, let me start this over here. I don't know if you can. How did it? Wait a minute, guys. There we go. Okay. I was like, why is it invisible? But it didn't do a very good job on that. But you get the idea. Uh, you can put shapes or objects up there and trace them. I haven't had really used that a whole lot. Uh, Apparently, you can use it to trace handwriting, and like I said, I've not been successful with that either. Uh, so here's some. Let me get rid of that. Here's some my handwriting. It's not that great. Some notes from a few stove cover builds, and you can play with these settings and these little adjustments here. A lot of times, and pull a little more out. I'm not good at this at all. I do know that you can change that. Like I said, I've had to do it out of necessity a couple times, and you can play around with these settings, and you can get it to pick up more and more. Uh, there we go. That looks pretty decent. And then you just got to go in. And I did not lay that in there straight, so we're just going to deal with it in this way. And that's what you can do. Now, if I had put this in here straight, then of course it wouldn't have all of this. But because I didn't lay it in there straight, it's messed up. So let me remove my handy notepad, update my overlay again, and now you can see what all is in there. And I mean, there are ways you can clean this up. You can go in and you have to ungroup this stuff before you can do a whole lot with it. And then you can go in and select these different little areas right here, and then you can delete them. But it's best if you do it in the tracing process, because once you get it in here, it's a pain to get rid of. So if you wanted to take some of this stuff out, you could. And so you're gonna get all little trashy pieces like that. But then once you did that, of course, that's set to a burn, and you can actually put that on a piece of wood if you wanted. I don't want to waste a big piece of wood, so let me see something here. See if I got a piece of scrap. Stand by. Just so happens I do have a piece of scrap. Scrap everywhere around here. Oops. Once you get what you want out of there deleted, make sure you go back and regroup that, because if you don't, you'll be slid some of it where you don't want it. And then once you've got that on there, like I said, I'm not worried about framing it, because I'm just sketching this out. But once you get that on there, you can actually burn it. It's now a burn file, and that's all you got to do. So that is the benefit of the camera, guys. I'm not going to sit here and wait on this thing to completely burn. The machine is getting down, though. Somebody had told me about turning the speed up for white space to make it burn quicker, and it does. It definitely does, but I think I may have to back it down just a little. I got a little speed happy. I don't know if you can see it in that camera over there or not. That thing's getting it. I'm gonna go ahead and stop that, because, like I said, this was just a demonstration, and you get the point. So once you do that, then, like I said, there's my text. Rather small text, but there's my text. And guys, it is humid out here again today. There was a little breeze when I came in here, and then I had to cut the fans off, and it's just not good. But anyway, I hope this helps you out. And if you're thinking about getting a camera, like I said, there's a lot of different options out there. I'm not going to say one's better than the other because this was my very first camera that I ever had. I did do some research of what cameras worked with lightburn and what cameras did not, because there are some cameras out there that apparently do not work real well with lightburn. I think there's a compatible camera list on Lightburn's website that tells you what cameras are compatible. And like I said, this little guy here is supposed to be, from looking at the specs, pretty much the same as the one that Lightburn sells. And I'm gonna fix this up and come up with a mounting method. And like I said, I've got a little enclosure that I'm thinking about trying to get set up and play with, and see how that works. So I appreciate you stopping by, and like I said, I hope this helps you. But I am fixing to go indoors for the remainder of the evening. So have a good night.